Hi, I'm Shoestring Jane. Welcome back to my channel where I talk about all things thrifty, frugal and money saving. Some of you will know that I run a Facebook group called My Second Hand and Frugal Life, and it really is just a mine of useful money saving information, and I am I go on there every day, very frequently inspired. I often learn something, and it seems to be generally a really good, supportive place. We've had the odd bad penny, but generally speaking, they are deleted, blocked, and nearly everybody on there really joins in the conversation. It's really, really nice. So it's a very supportive community. So I think it's kind of value now. I think we've got about 17,000 members now. So I thought for this video, it would be an interesting exercise to share some of the fairly recent, in the last sort of year or so, money saving conversations that we've had and people's experiences. So things that they've done and they've tried and that are useful, that you might also find useful if you haven't tried them yourself already. And I know lots of you are super frugal and probably will know many of these tips. Some of you may be total beginners when it comes to saving money. So I'm hoping you'll find them of use anyway. So I'll go through some of them. I didn't actually count how many there were, but I will be referring to my phone because I've got a list of them on here. So number one, they're in no particular order. I've tried to kind of group them together in terms of subject matter though. The first one, not surprisingly, jumped out at me was about energy and saving energy. And so somebody says to project the heat back into your room with the use of heat reflecting foil. So we've done it ourselves. This is Angela though. Angela says, I bought some foil liners for my radiators a few weeks ago. They are fab. I've had to turn one radiator down to one because it's so warm now. It's well worth the £21 that I paid. I lined 3 full radiators and 1 small one. We have done it as well in this house. We only bought a couple of rolls, I think, if not just a roll, and did at least 2 radiators because, yeah, we did 2 radiators, one in here, the 2 coldest rooms, in the sitting room and in my office, which is always the coldest room. So we used just one. At the time, I remember them being about £7 or £8, but I just had a quick look on the B&Q website and they're now £14 for 2 metres, which has obviously gone up since me or Angela used them, but it's still, I think, if you've got really chilly house, it's a worthwhile investment if you can afford it. You can use just plain foil. That will still reflect just ordinary cooking foil. It will still reflect the heat back. I do think there is something to be said for that insulating layer as well, though. It's almost like bubble wrap, but I don't think you could just use bubble wrap because I'm not sure about fire safety or whether it would melt behind your radiator. So I think it's better to either use foil or the real stuff. But I've used that myself as well, so I think that's a good first tip. Another thing that has come up a lot recently is the idea of heating yourself rather than your room or your whole house when you're just in one room. By just obvious things like wearing lots of layers, wearing a vest. I find that the vests I wear in the summer double up as actual vests in the winter. I don't have anything that's a vest like you used to have as a kid. That's the thing though, actually. When we were children, we all wore vests. All kids wore vests. It was just a thing. Now you rarely see them, but actually this is the time to bring them back. So wear lots of layers. The other thing that a lot of us have done, and I have done this myself, and I bought one for my dad for his birthday too because he really feels the cold, and that's to invest in a heated throw. So if you don't come across one, they're like fluffy throws, but they're not to go under your sheet like a electric blanket would have traditionally. These are something you can watch telly or read a book and curl up under your heated throw, plug it in. You do need to be near an electric socket. And then you can do that rather than heating the whole room. And they're really snug. And my dad has tried his already, even though it's just mid-September, because, as I say, he has very low circulation, not good circulation. He has polymyalgia and he really feels the cold. So he thought it was great. I've got mine, it's still in the box. I haven't had to use it because I actually bought it for my birthday with my birthday money in April. I haven't had to use it yet, but I think it's chillier now. This week it's become chillier in the UK, so that's going to be coming out, I'm quite sure. Mickey Knight, who's one of my moderation team on My Secondhand Frugal Life has bought one because she has back problems, joint problems. So she's bought one that literally is kind of a waistband, a really thick waistband. So it warms your back and your hips particularly if you don't want to wear a whole one. But that would have the effect of warming your whole body as well. So worth looking at anyway. Moving on to our next topic. Beth asked recently, does anyone else feel like a cross between being frugal and being a prepper? And I know there's a lot of American preppers, and I think it's kind of filtering through to the frugal community in the UK, the idea of stockpiling or, having a good store of items so that you protect yourself against cost of living rises, shortages. I think some of the American preppers are protecting themselves against Armageddon. I've said before that if Armageddon happens, Putin hits that button, I would like to go in the first wave. I'm not really bothered about hanging around if the end of the world is nigh, but I can see the point of doing this. So Beth says, with the cost of everything going up, if you can buy extra things when you see them, in the long run it will save you money. And one thing I do this with a lot is tinned dog food. The food my dog eats in Morrison's is £3 a can. That's a lot, isn't it? If a dog eats a lot, it eats a whole can every day. No way am I paying that. I looked around and found the same food on a deal at Wilko, 6 cans for £7.50. So I'm stocking up. And that really does make sense, not just on dog food, cat food, your food, anything, loo roll, whatever. It makes sense to look around, find yourself a deal. And if you see one, stock up. I mean, I keep saying to my daughters to do this. One of them lives in a very, very small one-bedroom flat. In fact, that's being a bit generous in London. It's more like a flat with a kind of large alcove for a bedroom. And she says, I've just got no space to do that, Mum. So I said, under the bed is for your food stores. Same with my other daughter. Just that's what you do. You put it under your bed. Michelle says, this is a different topic, but still on the subject of shopping. Consider if what you're buying is really essential. For example, it's essential to have clean clothes, therefore buy washing detergent. But if money is really tight, is it essential to buy fabric conditioner or those fragrance ball things? So, it's a good point, isn't it? Yes, okay, you probably do need washing powder, and that is all I use. A washing powder sometimes, and I have an eco egg for other things as well. But, I don't buy fabric conditioner. I don't even put vinegar or anything in, and I don't miss it. On the same note, Jem suggests that when you feel like shopping, shop your house first. When you feel like buying something, if you think you want something, have a think if there's anything you already own that you could use. So could a piece of furniture be used in a different room for a different purpose, for example? And when you think about it, it may be that is the case, that if you're a bit creative, you might already have a thing that perhaps you don't use very much for its purpose, but it could be used for something else. This one from Shirley. She is in her late 80s, and I know this because she is my mum, and she also comments on my Facebook group from time to time. She says that much of the stuff that we buy now wasn't available back in the day anyway, so can't really be considered essential. And I think that's a good point. And I did a video recently which was on things that our great-grandparents would not have bought along the same lines. She says she could never understand why people waste money on bottled water. She's never heard of anyone dying of drinking tap water, certainly not in the UK and in most of the Western world. So, that's a good point. I would never buy bottled water, except if I've forgotten my bottle, my reusable bottle. It has happened on occasion, and then we reuse the bottle that we have to buy for some time. I try to avoid it at all costs, and certainly wouldn't go and buy big bottles like you see people going in the supermarket with bottled water. I know that years ago when we used to go to France when we were kids, I don't think the water was so good then, and you would see people buying bottled water a lot, and they still do it, but I'm sure their water's, I know their water's safe to drink, so I've been to France several times. The subject has moved on to cooking. Debbie says, cook at home. Eating out in restaurants and buying takeout food is costly. This seems like a simple thing, but many have never learned to do much of their own cooking. I've mentioned this as well lots of times. You teach your children to cook, teach yourself to cook, get some basic skills. It's a really important life lesson, I think, knowing how to cook. Lisa backs this up as well. She says, cook from scratch. Incorporate low-cost foods such as dried pulses, etc. into your cooking. So there are a lot of comments on the value of scratch cooking because it makes sense. It does save you money. It doesn't mean that we always have to do it. You know, sometimes if you are working full time and you're really, really busy, maybe scratch cooking isn't really an option. There are lots of shortcuts you can take before you reach for your Deliveroo app on your phone or whatever you do. So, you know, you could have a can of sauce to throw a bolognese together. You could have some pies ready made in the freezer that you could just put in the oven with some chips. You know, they're still a lot cheaper. It may not be the healthiest option, but you know, even ready meals, some of the healthier ready meals, if you've got some in your freezer for those times when you're so busy, you haven't stopped, you've got the kids to feed, that kind of thing. Although I don't think ready meals are the best thing, they're fine occasionally, they're not going to kill you. So Ren says on scratch cooking, as we found out in the first big lockdown, it's amazing what you can make from the contents of the tin cupboard and some imagination. That's really true. So it goes back to shopping what you've already got in your house, doesn't it? Not necessarily in terms of furniture, but in terms of food. You know, quite often we have a lot of things in our store cupboards that we have shoved to the back, forgotten about. I certainly am guilty of this, forgotten to use, and it will last forever, but you know, if you are short of money, use those things first. Use up what you've already got. Angie suggests that you hunt down and treasure 1970s cookbooks. You'll need to tot things up a little bit for modern tastes, but they're great for no frills, inexpensive recipes because we were all broke back then. And we were. I remember I was a child in the 70s. I was talking to my mum about it very recently, and she said, you know, we were so broke. My dad was doing anything he could do to earn a bit of extra money. Window cleaning on top of his normal job and delivering newspapers and all sorts. But, you know, you did what you needed to do to get by. And we are doing that now as well. So I have a couple of those. I've got Adelia's Frugal Food, which was originally published in the 70s, and The Good Kitchen, I think it's called. I've shown it before in one of my other videos. So I understand what Angie means by that. I think some of those old cookery books are really quite useful. So if you find them in the charity shops, pick them up, take them home. Normally they're not very expensive, so if you don't like them, you haven't really lost much. There's a lot of chat around how you cook now because energy prices are obviously sky high in the UK. Using an electric oven, particularly an electric fan oven, just to cook one thing is really quite extravagant now. I certainly, since I got my smart meter, I can see what it's using. You know, you put the oven on for an hour on doing a casserole or something, and you really can see it dents your electricity usage for the day. So we've been talking about different things that you can use instead of using your oven. So you might have some of these things already. You might feel that actually for the long term it could be worth investing in them. So there's obviously slow cooker. Ellie uses her Instant Pot a lot on the pressure cooker setting to make a veggie stew in 20 minutes or so. So that is good, an idea. If you've got a pressure cooker, if you've got an Instant Pot, you can do various things in that, but you can use it for pressure cooking. And it's great if you eat a lot of pulses, for example, because you can cook them up in batches and freeze them, and that's much cheaper to buy them dried than it would be in cans, and it takes up less space as well. Many of us use our air fryers. I use mine a lot. You will have seen me do that on various videos. They aren't necessarily cheaper to run if you ran them for as long as your electric oven, but because they cook everything so much more quickly, they save you money. So if I have, you know, if it's just me here, or even if it's two of us here, and we want just a piece of fish in breadcrumbs maybe for a quick dinner, I can do those in about 10 minutes, and they'll be about 20 minutes in the oven. So same with chips and that kind of thing. I mean, they aren't huge. You can get large models. For us, we've just got quite a small model. It's good for two. If you had a family, you might want a larger model really to take advantage of it. But there are other things as well. Nikki Knight, again, has mentioned her previously. She does a lot of cooking and puts a lot of food posts on the group. She uses a Ninja cooker, which I've never tried one. But they're quite quick and they're quite cheap to run, apparently, or halogen ovens. And I don't know if a Ninja is a halogen oven, but it's not. A Ninja multi-cooker is a slow cooker, a pressure cooker, a steamer, an air fryer, plus it can sear, saute and roast. Certainly a lot of people have mentioned cooking with halogen ovens, and they cost less to run than a traditional oven. You will possibly have seen, if you're a regular viewer, me reviewing the Wonder Bag recently. You can see, I'll try and remember to link the video below. So it's a great big, very, very padded bag, and the idea is that you boil up whatever you're making in a casserole dish, or a saucepan with no long handle. It's going to have just side handles, with a lid, and then when you bring it to the boil, instead of continuing to cook it on your hob, you put it in your Wonder Bag, zip it all up nice and tight, and the heat stays in and continues to cook like a slow cooker, but with no electricity whatsoever. From that video, and even previously to that video, I know a lot of people have either made their own. Some people have made them looking very fancy. Some people have literally made them out of old duvets and put them in a box and just created the same kind of very insulated container. Or have used the old hay box method, which they used to use in the Second World War, and I think it's been around for hundreds of years. Literally, you find a box, you pad it with hay, or actually anything, it could be old clothing, whatever, and then you can do the same trick with that. So that is really worth looking at. It's even worth, I think, looking, if you've got a lot of fuel for an outdoor barbecue, if you've got a lot of fuel and you can save yourself some money by using that instead. I know in the midst of winter you don't necessarily want to be out using your barbecue, but a lot of people love barbecued food any time of the year. Same with camping stoves and that kind of thing. Think out of the box. I think the rocket stove is the other one, isn't it? So you can, if you have a look around, there are lots of alternatives, things that you can use instead of using a traditional oven or even a stovetop cooker. There are lots of different things. I saw Colette from my new favourite channel, Beltane Cottage, I still don't know how to pronounce that, boiling water on a Kelly kettle the other day, and they're really fascinating things because I think they're great. The Scouts like them. It's just a container with it's got kind of a hole in the bottom where the fuel is going to sit, and half of it contains water and half of it is where the smoke comes out from whatever you're burning, and you can just use any bits of twigs and straw and whatever you have handy outside, obviously only outside, to boil a kettle. She's got a video about it actually, so if you look at Beltane Cottage you will see she has a video about that. It's actually quite interesting. Moving on to transport costs, Jack suggests that you consider whether you can walk rather than getting in the car. This is helpful in so many ways, he says, including keeping the mileage low for resale. It's also good for the environment, of course. If it's less than 2 miles, it's reasonably easy to walk there and back. For shopping, have a rucksack. So it is better for the environment. I can't imagine that is great fun when you've got several kids in tow and you're trying to do your shopping. But it's not fun going shopping with several kids in tow anyway. I always used to try and leave mine at home if I could. But having said that, my mum Shirley, she used to get on the bus with a massive Silver Cross pram and 4 kids. So in the olden days, and I don't think she loved it though, to be fair. So I can imagine you might not want to do that, but if it's just you, then why not walk to the shop, get a bit of free exercise as well. Jill says, track your spending, write down absolutely everything you buy. When you see it in black and white, it brings how much you can be spending on treats to the fore. And this has come up a few times, and I've suggested it as well in previous money saving videos. Alison agrees that it's helpful to keep a record of every penny that you spend, and it is good. You think, where does the money go? You get paid, and then before the end of the month it's gone, and you think, what's it gone on? And if you actually go through your bank statements at that point, you can see there's probably lots of little Apple Pays and nowadays, or payments to newsagents and sandwich shops and coffee shops and for sweets and little things, little purchases that really do add up. And I found that keeping a spending diary for a while, I had a little notebook in my purse because when I did it, it was years ago, you couldn't get, didn't have Apple Pay, couldn't pay on your phone. It was a very useful exercise just to write down what I was spending. I kept all my receipts. I still keep my receipts now, and I write them down. Once a week I'll go through my budget book and write down what I've spent, and I can see, am I nearly at what I wanted to spend on food? Do I need to scale back? Have I overspent on fuel? That kind of thing. It's very useful. You can see where particularly where the miscellaneous spending is going. And if you can get that under control, you can really focus on the things you need to pay first, like your mortgage, your rent, things that you really have to pay. And those things, if you do have some money left at the end of the month, then, and you can afford it, you've got no plans for that money, then that's when you can spend it. But, not right at the beginning, and knowing where it's going is really useful. Angela says to always shop around for your insurance and take the cheapest comparable quote, i.e. for the same level of cover. So it might look cheaper but have a really high excess, or not cover accidental damage and that sort of thing. So make sure it is comparable. And if you take it back to your current provider, they will nearly always match it, she says. The same goes for phone deals. It would have gone for energy deals in the past, but I think that's a bit of a moot point at the moment, isn't it? Jackie says to use stuff up to the very end. So we all know about reducing our use of plastics, but I'm sure some of us will receive body lotions, etc., for birthdays and Christmas in plastic bottles. When they seem empty, turn them upside down for a while. And then with sharp scissors or a knife, carefully cut across the bottle about a third up from the top. And the amount of product left inside is amazing. Use fingers or a spatula to get what you need, then slide the bottom of the bottle back down over the top bit to keep what's left fresh. And she says she can get another couple of weeks worth doing this, and then you can rinse and recycle as usual. I also do this, particularly with things like plastic tubes of foundation, makeup, with toothpaste and that kind of thing. You think there's loads left and you can't get to it, but just snip it and you can quite often get to it. Ren agrees with this, but also says that one of her biggest savings has been to switch to bar soaps and shampoos, which is good for the environment as well as her bank balance. I don't think that solid shampoos are always cheaper, but they do last quite a long time. But certainly hand soap, so much cheaper to buy it as a solid bar rather than in liquid form, and obviously much less plastic involved. Nikki, there was an interesting post from Nikki on the group very recently where she asked about lining her really quite thin curtains. So she's got these long curtains, but they're quite thin, they're almost threadbare in places. You can see the light coming through them. She couldn't afford to buy new curtains, so she was asking what the best thing to do would be. So everyone thought it's quite a good idea to line them. People suggested buying fleecy blankets from charity shops for the job, or asking on FreeCycle, or using old duvet covers, cheap throws, fleecy throws, or hanging additional curtains. So if you've already got some curtains, maybe some old ones you've taken down when you've changed decor, or some you can pick up cheaply or for free, you can actually hang them behind the ones in front. And they really do make a difference to drafty windows. You can use dust sheets, just old sheets, any type of fabric really. Whatever you use is going to add an extra layer to help keep the heat in. But then other people said that Dunelm sell thermal linings, and they're really not too expensive, about £12 a pair, I think they were saying. And the advantage of those is they were kind of designed for the job, so they just clip onto your current curtains. So that might be something that I am going to consider looking at over the winter. There were lots of suggestions about asking for old curtains, FreeCycle, Buy Nothing groups, that kind of thing. So if you do have those in your area, most people do, so sign up for those. They're really worth it. We've had a lot of good free stuff, and we've given stuff away as well. On the same subject of drafty windows, Anne suggests that cling film on your glass helps stop the drafts coming in. I have heard that before, but I've never tried it. I've never wanted the look of it, really. Sue has used bubble wrap for the same job. So it may not look the best, but it is about staying warm. I can imagine bubble wrap would really work. I pick up big rolls for my things that I send out that I've sold online, and you can get it on eBay. It's really quite cheap. It's not too bad at all. So yeah, it's not going to look fabulous, but if you just want to keep your energy bills down and keep the heat in, then it's certainly worth considering. It's not like it's a permanent measure. You can take it down when the spring comes. Seeing as it's a group called My Secondhand and Frugal Life, we nearly all buy secondhand most of the time. So that's anything. That could be something for the home, that can be clothing, that can be anything really, anything you can think of. Tools and things for the garden, pots. We find free stuff as well. And so the members of the group love to show off their secondhand bargains. So if you like that sort of thing, if you come over, you can see what people have picked up. The same with yellow sticker discounted food. People love to show the hauls that they've got when they've gone at the right time of day into the supermarket and got really all the best bargains. A lot of people use Olio. So you probably have heard of this app. I think it's a genius little app. It aims to unite somebody who would like some food for free with a retailer or an individual who has something to give away and they don't want to waste it. So a lot of the big retailers like Tesco's, I think Tesco's own Booker, we have a big Booker cash and a carry here, and they give a lot to our Olio reps. And you can see a lot if you look on the group of people's Olio hauls. One of our mods, Lisa, has shared a lot of really good things recently. The other day she had quite a lot of baked items. You do get bread and cakes and crumpets and things like that on there a lot. But she also picked up 3 heads of broccoli, some salad and some bananas as well in one of her recent hauls. So very good. Really worth looking at if you've got a hungry family to feed. You know, you probably do get through lots of bread anyway, don't you, because you're making sandwiches and things. So it's really, really worth checking out the Olio app. It doesn't cost anything, although somebody said they have a voluntary admin fee, subscription fee now that they never used to have. I obviously joined a while ago, so that didn't happen, but you don't have to say yes to that if you can't afford it. So this is just a reflection of some of the conversations that we've had on the group. It really is a lovely community, and if you want to join, just click on the link in the description below and make sure you answer the questions. We get quite a lot of people who don't seem to notice that there are a couple of questions. Just make sure you're a person, not a bot, and that you really want to join, and just answer those, and then one of us will approve your request to join and you can join in the chat. So I'll leave the link below, as I say, and let me know in your comments what you do, what your top tips would be if you were talking to somebody about how to save money. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give me the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you like more of the same content, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.